Jacqueline's twilight of life was tinged with the colors of melancholy and mourning. For 35 years, she had shared every breath with Michael, her husband, who had been the embodiment of love and shelter. He had sustained her through life's tumultuous storms, holding her firmly through the worst gales. "You are my lighthouse in the storm, Jacqueline," Michael often whispered, his eyes always shining with a blend of affection and admiration. Now, at the age of 65, Jacqueline found herself alone in a mansion that echoed with emptiness. Its walls adorned with paintings depicting smiles from happier days. The mornings, once filled with the aroma of coffee meticulously prepared by Michael, were now immersed in deafening silence. The debilitating illness that had taken him away had been a cruel thief, first robbing him of his vitality and then of life itself. "We should have had more time," she murmured to herself, looking at the scattered travel plans on the oak office table. Her home had become a gilded cage. The wealth they had accumulated together through years of tireless work now seemed as useless as stones by the roadside. "You always said that money wasn't meant to be hoarded but to be lived, Michael. And now, the trips we had dreamed of together, the exotic destinations we had planned to explore in retirement, had become ghosts haunting Jacqueline with the whisper of adventures that would never be lived. Greece in the spring, Japan during cherry blossom season." She recited the list, each destination an unfulfilled promise. One day, as she walked through the hallways of her home, Jacqueline stopped in front of a photograph of them in Paris, smiling under the Eiffel Tower. "Do you remember, my love?" She touched the cold glass. "You said it was only the beginning, that we would come back one day and dance by the Seine." She closed her eyes, allowing herself to be transported back to that moment, hearing the distant echo of accordion music, feeling Michael's hand on her waist. "I can still hear the music," she whispered. "I can still feel your hand." Jacqueline knew that her home, with all its quiet rooms and empty corridors, was filled with memories. But memories were not enough to warm the cold that had settled in her heart after Michael's death. The light of Jacqueline's dreams was buried along with him, and she felt as if a part of herself had died too. In the stillness that followed, she wandered through the house, each room adorned with memories of future plans that would never materialize. She found herself standing in front of a world map in the library, tracing with her finger the routes they had discussed: Paris in the spring, Cairo in the winter, a litany of destinations that now echoed empty and meaningless. In one of these moments of reflection, she found herself talking to her husband's portrait by the fireplace. "You were always my north, my guide," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "How will I find my way without you?" The silence that followed was her only answer, a cruel reminder that for the first time in 35 years, Jacqueline was truly alone. With a sigh that carried the weight of her new world, she acknowledged that she would have to find a way to chart a new path on her own. The world outside called to her, a whispered invitation to live the dreams she and Michael had woven together. Perhaps, she thought, a spark of determination igniting within her, perhaps there is still time for me. Jacqueline recalled the last days of Michael as she sat daily beside the makeshift hospital bed in the large living room, holding her husband Michael's hand. He lay pale and frail under thin linen sheets, his eyes once filled with a restless sparkle now rarely opened, and when they did, it was as if they were searching for something long lost. "Do you remember our trip to Tuscany, my love?" Jacqueline whispered, trying to evoke memories of happier days. "You said we would come back to see the vineyards in the autumn." Michael, in moments of clarity, gently squeezed her hand in response, a faint smile attempting to touch his lips. "I would love to see the vineyards again," he murmured, his voice a faint whisper that barely disturbed the room's silence. Even amid the pain and loneliness that consumed her, Jacqueline tried to stay strong for him. "We will still go," she insisted, a promise that her heart knew was more for herself than for him. "We will see the world, just as we planned." The two had built an empire together, a chain of hotels that began with a single rundown establishment they had refurbished with their own hands. Now, the fruits of their hard work had made them wealthier than either of them could have imagined. But what is wealth worth, Jacqueline thought, when health and time cannot be bought? On one of Jacqueline's lonely days, where the twilight spilled through the windows, painting the room in gold, a sanctuary of memories and grief, she found a small mahogany chest hidden deep in the closet. Dusty and forgotten, inside, a stack of yellowed letters was tied with a red velvet ribbon, each envelope stamped with the emblem of a local orphanage. With trembling hands, Jacqueline undid the bow and took the top letter. The paper made a delicate sound as she unfolded it, the words written in blue ink jumping off the page. They expressed deep gratitude for Mr. Michael's invaluable generosity and time. A wave of surprise and confusion washed over her. "He never told me anything about this," she murmured, the discovery swirling in her mind. Each letter was an echo of gratitude, stories of children who had found hope and comfort thanks to the benevolence of a man Jacqueline thought she knew completely. Memories of their arguments, she always pushing for more trips, more luxuries, while he spoke of responsibility and legacy, flooded her with renewed clarity. "You've always been so private about your charities," she remembered saying to him once, mildly annoyed by him diverting funds that could have been spent on another of their extravagant excursions. "Jacqueline, love, there's more to life than just living for ourselves," he replied, his eyes filled with a quiet passion that she hadn't fully understood at the time. "There's so much we can do, so much we must do, for those in need." And now, surrounded by these letters that spoke of a love and care extended beyond the walls of their home, Jacqueline felt a mix of pride and remorse. "You were right, Michael," she said aloud, as if he could hear her. "There was a part of you so deep, dedicated to others, and I didn't see." She stood up, walking to the window, looking at the sky now tinged with deep colors as the sun set. "I should have supported you more," she confessed to the golden reflection of the departing day. "And maybe somehow, I still can." The letters in her hands were no longer just paper and ink, but a calling, a legacy to be continued. A final connection to the man she loved and a bridge to a future where she could finally understand and honor his sincere desire to help. Despite Jacqueline's desire to help and continue her husband's legacy, she didn't know where to start and ended up feeling stuck in her calling. Jacqueline's days passed in the vast silence of her home, Michael's absence screaming from every opulent corner, from every meticulously chosen piece of furniture. The reflection of a shared life was everywhere, but now, with his death, it all felt like a spectacle for an audience of one. With no children to call their own and without the lifelong companion, Jacqueline felt a void that consumed not only her house but also the essence of her being. One evening, she wandered into Michael's office, where the letters from the orphanage were still scattered on the desk, each one a testament to her husband's hidden kindness. "What do I do with all this pain?" she questioned the silence. "How do I go on without you?" Michael's words seemed to whisper in the shadows, an echo of a past conversation. "When I'm gone, I don't want you to get lost in the darkness, Jacqueline," he had said on one of his last good days. "Find a light, a cause. Live not just for me but for yourself." Moved by his words, Jacqueline decided that the light could be found in continuing his work. I will go to the orphanage," she decided, her voice firmer than she felt. "I will help the children, just as you did." Jacqueline's gray days were tinted with a different light after the discovery of the letters. Life, which had seemed like a series of senseless events after Michael's death, began to take on a sense of purpose. The following week, she resolved to visit the orphanage her husband had supported. When she arrived at the orphanage for the first time, her heart was tumultuous with a mix of emotions, anticipation, fear, and a twinge of joy. She saw, in the grateful looks of the children and the photographs in the orphanage, a possibility for continuity, a chance to honor the legacy of love and care her husband had left behind. The director, a kind-eyed lady named Martha, welcomed her with warmth that melted some of the ice around Jacqueline's heart. "You have no idea how grateful we are," Martha expressed, leading her through the lively hallways where the children's laughter resonated like music. The children looked at Jacqueline with curiosity, but any strangeness soon melted away. "You are Mr. Michael's wife?" a little girl asked, her brown eyes shining with a mixture of sadness and hope. Jacqueline nodded, her throat too tight to speak. How could she explain to these children that she, just like them, was searching for something lost? Day after day, she returned, becoming more immersed in the orphanage's routine, learning more about the little souls her husband had cared for. The hotels she and Michael owned, once centers of their social and professional lives, began to feel distant, almost unreal compared to the tangible and rewarding reality of her work at the orphanage. "These children," she said to Martha one day as they watched the little ones playing in the courtyard, "they have so much love to give and so much potential. Michael saw that, and now I see it too." Martha smiled, placing a comforting hand on Jacqueline's shoulder. "He would be proud," she simply said, but those words were all Jacqueline needed to hear. Jacqueline found in the orphanage not only a new purpose but an extension of the life she had built with Michael. There, amidst games and lessons, laughter and hugs, she cultivated the legacy of a man whose love continued to grow even after his departure. And somehow, she felt that Michael was still with her, smiling through the eyes of every child she helped care for. As each day passed for Jacqueline at the orphanage, the tapestry of the children's stories wove itself deeper into her heart. She learned their names, their idiosyncrasies, their dreams whispered with the innocence of childhood and the premature harshness that life had imposed upon them. Jacqueline saw the reflection of her own emptiness in their eyes, a space that cried out to be filled, to be loved. In a corner of the courtyard, 3 siblings played together, separated from the rest by an invisible bond of loss and mutual dependence. The director, Martha, told Jacqueline their stories. "They're resilient, our little warriors," she said. "But what they need most is a home, someone who sees them not just as 3, but as individuals." Jacqueline observed the siblings, a boy with a shy smile who loved to draw, his sister, a natural-born leader with eyes that defied the world, and the youngest, a soft-spoken boy who followed the others like a shadow. "They are amazing," Jacqueline murmured, feeling a twinge of emotion. "But I am too old to be their mother," she confessed to Martha one day, uncertain, weighing every word. Now, Jacqueline had found a purpose in her visits to the orphanage, but would it be enough to deal with her grief? Or would she need to have a family of her own to truly cope with all the pain? Do you think she will adopt the siblings? Leave your comments here. Martha looked at her with a gentle yet firm expression. "Jacqueline, there is no age limit for love, and love is what they need most. You feel that for them, don't you?" Jacqueline couldn't deny it. From the moment she saw them, something within her stirred, an instinct she never knew she possessed. "Yes," she admitted. "I love them. It's instant, it's scary, but it's real." In the following days, she spent more time with the siblings, helping with homework, tending to scraped knees, and telling stories that made them laugh and dream. The love she feared was too late to give flowed like a river after the rain, natural and revitalizing. Finally, on a summer afternoon while the 3 of them were sitting around her, she spoke, her voice firmer than she felt. "I would like you to come live with me if you want to," she said, her heart beating strongly in her chest. The children's eyes lit up, and the eldest, the spokesperson of the trio, responded with a serious nod beyond his young age. "We would really like that, Mrs. Jacqueline," he said, and the other 2 nodded vigorously. In that moment, Jacqueline knew that her age didn't matter. What mattered was the home she could offer and the love that already filled every corner of this new family that was forming. Hesitation dissipated, replaced by warm certainty and an unwavering commitment to be everything these children needed and more. Jacqueline began with all the paperwork to bring the children home, and in less than a month, the Carson siblings were in her house as a family. Jacqueline's residence, once a sanctuary of silence and memories, now buzzed with the vibrant energy of the Carson siblings. They had brought with them the colorful chaos of youth, transforming Jacqueline's quietude into a whirlwind of activities and laughter. The hallways echoed with the sound of little feet running, and the walls, which had witnessed loneliness, were now witnesses to a new family story and hope. On a typical morning, the smell of pancakes wafted through the house, and Jacqueline found herself surrounded in the kitchen by 3 eager faces. "You make the best pancakes in the world, Mom," Jacqueline exclaimed, the youngest's eyes shining with anticipation. She smiled, running her hand through his tousled hair, and replied, "And you guys are the best helpers a mom could ask for." Jacqueline's happiness flowed as naturally as the batter in the frying pan. The boys crowded around the kitchen island, each eager to share about last night's dreams or plans for the day. Jacqueline listened, truly listened, to every word, every laugh, every sibling dispute. She had become the mediator, the advisor, the teacher, and most importantly, the mother, roles she played with a love that grew with each passing day. At bedtime, the bedtime routine was a sacred ritual. After teeth were brushed and pajamas were donned, Jacqueline sat on the edge of each bed, reading stories that transported them to lands of adventure and magic. "Mom Jacqueline, do you think we can be heroes like in the book someday?" the eldest of the siblings would ask, his brown eyes reflecting the glow of the nightlight. "My dear, you already are my hero," Jacqueline whispered, kissing their foreheads. "You saved me as much as I saved you." The boys, with serene looks and contented smiles, drifted off to sleep under Jacqueline's watchful gaze, which lingered until their breathing deepened into slumber. In the silence that followed, she reflected on the unexpected journey that life had taken her, from the abyss of loss to the fullness of motherhood. Jacqueline not only raised them as her own children, but she reinvented herself with them. With every lesson she taught, she learned double about the power of letting go and the depth of human compassion. With every good night, every hug, and every "I love you, Mom," Jacqueline wove the fabric of her new family tighter, a family built not of blood but of love, the purest and most unconditional. However, whenever she could, Jacqueline continued to visit and support the orphanage, unwilling to let her husband's legacy fade away. Time passed, but the change in Jacqueline's life did not come without its storms. The chain of hotels, the foundation of Jacqueline and Michael's legacy, began to waver under the weight of a devastating economic crisis. Every attempt by Jacqueline to keep the doors open felt like trying to contain a flood with her bare hands, the manager said during a somber meeting. The charts and numbers on the screen painted a picture Jacqueline wished she could erase. With a heavy heart, Jacqueline made the decision to close the hotels. "I promised Michael I would keep his dream alive," she confided in the boys, now almost teenagers, as they walked through the empty fields surrounding their home. "But it seems I have failed." The boys, each carrying the sense of resilience and adaptability that life in the orphanage had instilled in them, did not accept defeat. "Mom, why don't we use this land for something new, like farming or, I don't know, something like that," suggested the eldest, looking towards the horizon where the land met the sky. Jacqueline considered the idea, and together they devised a plan. Under Jacqueline's guidance and with the young, energetic hands of the boys, the fields were transformed. Where there had once been wild grass and neglected land, now rows upon rows of vegetables and fruit sprouted, a mosaic of green against the brown earth. "Look, Mom, our first tomatoes," exclaimed the youngest, his voice vibrant with the triumph of seeing the fruit of their labor. Working from dawn to dusk, Jacqueline and her sons revitalized the land. The crops thrived, and over the months, the family began to shake off the specter of hunger. "You saved us all, Mom," her son would say, gratitude shining in their voices. She smiled. "No, we saved together." Jacqueline, who had once been defined by loss and loneliness, was now known as the matriarch of a family that had not only transformed their own fate but also that of those around them. The fields, once symbols of desolation, were now a testament to hope and rebirth, feeding a community and strengthening the bonds that united a town. The woman who had lost everything was now celebrated as a local hero, not for avoiding the fall, but for rising and bringing everyone with her. The seasons passed, each leaving its mark on Jacqueline's heart and soul. The boys, once small seeds of potential and need, had flourished under her care, becoming men and a woman of worth and character. They had flown the nest Jacqueline had provided, each forging their path, but always returning to the comfort of the home she had given them. "Mom, will you come to little Emma's baptism?" the eldest asked during a video call, proudly holding his own daughter in his arms. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," Jacqueline replied, a smile lighting up her wrinkled face. The sight of the boys embracing their roles as fathers filled Jacqueline with indescribable satisfaction. She witnessed the miracle of the continuity of life, the sweet reward for her years of love and sacrifice. Over the years, Jacqueline not only saw her boys become fathers and a mother, but also shared adventures around the globe with them. She embarked on the trip she had once dreamed of taking with Michael, now accompanied by the laughter and hurried steps of her children and grandchildren. The Great Wall is even more impressive than in the books, don't you think? The youngest observed as they rested breathless but happy under the blue sky of China. Life is more impressive than I could have ever imagined, Jacqueline replied, her gaze sweeping the horizon, absorbing every moment, every sight and sound. When Jacqueline closed her eyes for the last time at the age of 93, it was with the serenity of one who had lived fully. Her final breath was taken at home, surrounded by the family she had raised, her hands intertwined with those of her children, and the gentle touch of her grandchildren's kisses on her forehead. Mom Jacqueline lived to see the fruits of love, they said at her memorial, and taught us that every act of kindness ripples beyond the days of our own life. Jacqueline left a legacy of love and service, a story woven into the tapestry of many lives. The house, once filled with the pain of loss, now echoed with the reverberations of a life well lived, of shared adventures, and of a family that would continue to tell the story of a woman who was, to them, the whole world. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.